Hey YouTube. It never ceases to amaze me how people are easily deceived by certain things. And the thing I'm talking about right now is the difference between slab, riff, and quarter sawn. And it just seems that people get confused over the definition by looking at pictures. I've looked at about 10 different websites where they describe quarter sawn and riff sawn, and they describe it the way it is, you know, what the true description. But the pictures, for some reason, that show the cut are deceiving, and they make people confused. So I got this gauge here. It's a handy dandy little gauge. 90 degrees is when this edge is the edge that it's referencing. So at 90 degrees you have a 90 here. If it's 80, 70, 60, 50, whatever, there's 50 degrees, you have an angle there. This is 50 on this side, it's 130 on that side. Okay, so I just want to explain this one time here yet, and then I'm not going to talk about it no more because I already talked enough about this. If the annual rings are somewhere between 60 and 90, okay, and every one of these on here is, the annual rings are all about like that, which is let's see here, that would be 75, I believe. Yeah, 75 degrees. This is a quarter sawn board. Okay, quarter sawn board. This right here, if we measure the angle of the annual ring, it's at 50 degrees. This is riff sawn. Okay, and then let me see if I can find the slab sawn here. Here we go. And this board here, if you check the rings, we're going to look at that ring, and that ring is 65. So we're going to say this is quarter sawn all the way to, let's see, where's 60? It's quarter sawn to about right here. From here over is quarter sawn. From here over, this turns into riff, and you can see that it's at 40 there, okay, riff sawn, and then it turns into slab sawn, all in one board. Now, I have a person telling me that they that the information I gave on quarter sawn boards was wrong. Now, I don't know what information he's exactly talking about, because he picked a part of a video I made, and I'm not even bothering to go look at it, to be honest with you. But I just want to show you that depending upon where in the log you're measuring, you can, if you cut out of the center of a log, you get all three things. You get slab sawn, you get riff sawn, you get quarter sawn. And this is a good example of that, okay? Because the slab is here, the quarter sawn is out near the end, and the riff is from there over. Now, whether or not one wood is better than the other, doesn't that depend on what you're using it for? I mean, we can say that this part of the board is better than this part, and we might be right. We might be right. But it all depends on what you're going to do with the wood. And for some reason it seems that people can't quite understand that. See this board right here? This is all quarter sawn. This is all what you call quarter sawn board. Because quarter sawn is anything that has the annual rings going from 90 to 60. Okay? Anything between 60 and 45 is rift sawn. Now, how the rings go is not an indicator as to how good the lumber is all the time. Now, they say that rift sawn is the most expensive cut, but when they show the picture of it being cut, they show it being cut as all quarter sawn in pictures I've seen, because the rift sawn goes from 45 all the way to 60, that angle. And what that does is it gives you a cathedral effect on one edge, okay, on this edge here and this edge, and it gives you straight grains on the other edge. If you look at any table leg that's a good table, you'll see that there's straight grains on one side, a cathedral on another edge. That all has to do with whether someone likes that or not, and what you're trying to achieve, okay? If that's what you're trying to achieve, then that's what you're going to get. But I was just trying to explain to this person that made the comment that that's the definition of the wood. It's between 90 degrees. If the annual rings are between 90 and 60, okay, right there, more than that. Now, every one of these is less than that angle, every one of them, okay. That's quarter sawn, because the definition of the quarter sawn, not the picture. The pictures, I have a website, I think it's that I was on, it's National Hardwood Association. They have a drawing of the quarter sawn, rift sawn, and slab sawn. But yet the picture that they have is wrong, but the description of the cut is right. Okay, is right, because they always talk the face, which is the widest part of the board, not being the length. So again, I think you can see in here the grain in this piece right here, and if I measure this grain and I put it from right along the grain there, we see that this is about 68 degrees. This is quarter sawn right here. But as I come out away from the center, this starts to become harder and harder, okay, of an angle. So it's like 40 degrees over here. So that means that this over in here is rift, a small part of this. Then it goes to quarter, and then it turns into slab sawn. So anything that you cut in the center of the tree will give you that. So I don't know what the person's trying to do when they're saying that the information I gave is wrong, when there's, I think, 15,000 views on that video, and out of all that, one person says this, and then sends me a picture that came from a bow maker. Again, there's 3 types of cuts. That does not mean physical cutting. It's a noun, okay? And I explained that before. And the cuts that you get all have to do with the angle of the annual ring compared to the face. So all you got to do is measure that, and you can tell what part is rift and what is not. So if I wanted a rift sawn piece, all I have to do is measure the annual rings, and when they change to rift sawn, I rip it there, go over a little further, rip it there, and that's what I've got. I've got what I'm asking for. So just go by the definition of the wood rather than the pictures that you see, because for some reason the pictures, a lot of them that I've seen, are wrong. Now sometimes, and here's the other thing, the way that wood is cut, I had said this before, that when I go buy lumber, what I do is I look for the quarter sawn board. The quarter sawn board, or rift sawn, whichever you like. The quarter sawn board, though, is always in the center cut of the tree when they're slab sawing. Always. That's quarter sawn, and it's also can be rift sawn. It all depends on the size of the tree and everything, and you know how big the tree gets. Because as the tree gets bigger, depending upon where the cut is in it, the annual ring will be on more of an angle, okay, just because of the size of the tree. So I'm not trying to say that the size of the tree determines whether you can get an annual cut, or I mean a rift cut or a quarter sawn cut. What I'm saying is you can always get those cuts when you slab saw. It all depends on, you know, when you get to that point where the angle is what I said. 60 degrees or less is rift sawn, 60 to 45. Less than 45 would be considered slab sawn, and more than 60 to between 60 and 90 is quarter sawn. It's that simple. So I hope that this helps. I'm not trying to degrade anybody here. I'm just trying to say that if you're going to talk about something, then we ought to know the facts. And if you look at the facts are the definition of what the different three woods are. Okay, and the fact is that from 90 to 60 is quarter sawn, from 60 to 45 is rift sawn, and from 45 and beyond you're talking slab sawn. So if we look at that 45, if the annual rings, like say in this piece you can see it, that the annual rings are basically straight up and down. But if they ran like this, that's considered slab sawn, okay? Just like this piece of wood here, for instance. This piece of wood, if I put this on here, it's like this. That's the angle of the one ring I'm on. So it's like 30 degrees. That's considered slab sawn, okay? And when I come out here, it changes a little bit. Right here's another ring there. That's about 35 degrees as well. Still the same thing, okay? It's the same slab sawn. But if you go through the center of the tree, as you come across, you will encounter all three cuts. All three types of cuts, you know, that have that name: rift, quarter sawn, and slab sawn. Okay guys, well, it's been a rainy day today. On and off rain. You can see everything is wet. I was working on another project that I want to show you and see what you think about this, so bear with me and I'll take you into my garage. And guys, the other thing I want to say in closing here, depending upon the rift and quarter sawn, is this. Regrettably, companies cut wood certain ways. If you remember, I went through the aggravation of making a jig on my sawmill that cuts true quarter sawn boards. And if you know the definition of quarter sawn, it's a 90-degree angle to the face, and I can cut that. But when I look on the pages of a book or on the internet in different places, it shows those same cuts as being rift sawn, when in reality the rift sawn is more of an angle, okay, than what the quarter sawn is. So regrettably, it depends on the person doing the cutting, the company, how they define quarter sawn. I watched a guy on YouTube, I don't remember his name, but he turned out log constantly to get quarter sawn boards, and he was doing a fantastic job. Then there was another guy who quartered the log, cut it in 4 quarters like a pizza, and cut each side. Cut one side, turned it, flipped it, cut the other side, turned it, flipped it, cut the other side. In that way, that is what mills call standard quarter sawing. But in truth, it's not all quarter sawn boards. Some of them are slightly rift and bordering on slab sawn. So it all depends on where you're buying the wood as well. It's not just a matter of, you know, somebody can say this is quarter sawn, this is our quarter sawn lumber. The one person, or there's a lot of different people, but the one I especially like, if you watch Linda's Sawmill Cinema, She has, I don't know, millions of views, and they do a good job. There's no doubt about it. They're hardworking, knowledgeable people. If you read some of their stuff, the one video I saw said something about our quarter sawn boards. That's right. They're defining it as ours because not everybody cuts quarter sawn the same way. That's something that you have to realize. And once you know that, then you'll start using a gauge to measure quarter sawn so that if you want quarter sawn or riff, you will truly get it because you measured it. It's no different than going to the store and saying, I want 1/2 inch plywood. You look at the plywood, you measure it, and you find out it's either 1/2 inch or slightly less or whatever it is, and if that's what you want, you take it. But it depends on the manufacturer, because what they call 1/2 inch plywood today is not 1/2 of an inch. This has been going on for 150 years in this country, the argument over the size of wood. It had to do with wood being cut out west and shipped east and drying on its way here on the rail cars. Okay, read history, it'll tell you about these things. But nonetheless, trying to standardize it, and that's what I'm trying to do myself, is get a standardization to follow. And I have come up with it, and I'm not changing it, and that's what I'm staying with. 0 to 45 degree angles are slab sawn. 45 to 60 degree angles, annual rings to the face, are riff sawn, and 60 to 90 are quarter sawn, period. It depends on the company as well, because some companies will say this is our quarter sawn lumber and argue with you about it because they don't have a way of cutting it any other way. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Bye. Alright, guys, if you remember the other day, I was talking about making some furniture that's and packaging it and shipping it out to people, that all they have to do is put it together and stain it and they have a solid piece of furniture, you know, good solid wood. So what I came up with, instead of those long benches, I have this is a heart shape here, and I have 2 pieces of wood together because I want them to be exactly the same, so I'm sanding them together. But what I have here is 2 pieces of wood, and it's for a table, a plant stand. I made a plant stand for my wife. She has 2 of them, I think, in the house that look like this. They're made out of pine. But it's about 36 inches high, and then down about halfway down will be the other part of the table. So you have one shelf at about 16 or 18 inches, and another shelf at 36 inches. And then what happens here is, like the way you're looking at it would be basically the front of the table. Right here, this wide, 36 inches long, is a straight leg. There's a straight leg here going down and a straight leg here going down. Now, I looked on the post office website, and they don't have numbers there though for me, but they have a box that these 2 will fit in perfectly. Okay, I designed this so that it would only be 12 inches high from the bottom of the heart to the top. The width's a little more than 12, but it's 12 by, say, 16 roughly, okay, for the heart. And they also have a box that the legs can fit in. The legs are 36 inches. They have a box there that is, I think, 36 and 15/16, I want to say. Some weird number. But anyway, so I do have packaging from the post office that I could put these into. So all I got to do is figure out the price of this. If I go with the price of lumber alone, for this and the legs, you're looking at probably around $35. But I don't know what shipping would be. So let's assume that shipping was $15. You're looking at $45 for a solid table. Now that, and what I'd like to be able to do is I can ship that, whether it's white oak, red oak, cherry, or white pine, or maple. I can do all these tables, these plant stands, and ship them out in 2 nice boxes, and then all the person has to do is just put the dowels in. So what I'm going to do then, it's just the start of my thought on this thing. So what I'm going to do is finish building this table, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how they go together. I'm gonna put this together with the dowels, and there'll be 2, 4, 6 dowels in this. And all the person has to do is take the legs, put them against it, drive the dowel through. There'll be a little bit of sanding, but the way I design this, I can run it through my planer, so that makes it even nicer. I don't have to spend a lot of time with it. And I'm trying to keep the price of it down. So that's where I'm at so far with this idea. Now I wanted to show you something else too. I did a test on this glue joint, okay, and the glue joint that was down here, I actually had it on my backhoe, and I think I'll include a little clip of that. When I picked up a 225-pound log, this broke at the dowel, but it did not break the glue joint, okay. So I'm assuming then that this thing can hold, if nothing else, I know it can hold half the log, because one end of the log was down on the ground. So you're looking at 120, or yeah, 112 pounds, I think I said, or 125 pounds. Either way, it's 125 pounds, I believe it is, that this held up one side of the log. And then when I pushed down to hold the whole log, that's when the dowel broke. The sad thing is that I didn't have it, it's not, you know, as scientific as it could be, because I was pulling pressure on one side of the dowel. So I think that because of that, it broke this to the side. Now the top one here, this is in 300 thousandths. Let me grab the dowel pin that came out of that. Oh, I don't know where I have it. But anyway, what happened with this one is, oh, I glued it into another piece of wood. I want to try it again. But anyway, this going into this end grain, it pulled basically right out. What I'm trying to do is see just how strong these joints are on the benches that I had made. But what I want to do is go into this side. Oh, here I have it here. Let me just show you this. So I have this dowel going into the face of the wood instead of the end grain, because that's where it actually goes. Into the face of the wood, 300 thousandths, and I want to see how much this will be able to hold. Now I just put this in there not long ago. This has to have 24 hours to dry. But what happened was when I had the dowel in there, it pulled out pretty quickly. There wasn't a whole lot of strength to it. So we'll see how this one does. But I'll show you a little clip of that, you know, what happened here, and then you can judge for yourself. Okay guys, so that's it for today's video. If you have any comments about the heart table, let me know what they are. As far as riffs on and stuff like that, I'm tired of talking about that. I've explained it so many times it isn't even funny. But anyway, if you have any comments about the bench, I'd really like to hear about those. Or not the bench, the plant stand. I'd like to hear about those. And also, if you want to comment about the dowels, let me know what you have to say. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one. Bye. Guys, this is what the stand looks like when it's finished that I was talking about there. Oh, I hope I don't break this. Okay. Alright, so that's a pine heart-shaped table. But that's what it looks like when it's finished. I just wanted to show you that. This is the upstairs of the house. And I just wanted to show you what that looks like. I'm going to put this back. Hey YouTube. So it's Saturday morning. And it's drizzling. I've got a 10-inch log here, 10 inches in diameter. A little more at that end. And it's 9 foot long, so 4.5 foot minus about an inch or two. I'm pretty much right in the center there. So what I'm doing today is I'm testing this glue joint on this dowel. Now this is a maple log, and maple a log 10 inches in diameter for the, depending upon what type of maple is, and I'm going to take the least weight, is 25 pounds per foot of this tree, okay? So 9 times 25, 8 times 25 would be 200 pounds, so that's 225 pounds, all right? So I have the band, or the heck do you call this thing? Well, whatever you call it, I can't think of the name. Anyway, I have this strapped around here in a choke hold. So I'm going to put that on the backhoe bucket, and I'm going to see if I can pick this thing up, because I just want to see how strong one of these joints are with Gorilla Glue. And also I want to respond to a comment that I did not respond to online, and what it was the guy had said with the bench that I made the other day that you shouldn't glue the top all the way around. I agree with that in some circumstances, especially if you're using pine. I have glued pine all the way around like that only to find it split 1/4 of an inch in the middle. But this oak does not shrink near as much as what pine does. So I don't think I'm going to have any kind of problems with that. But what I want to do is see if just how much one of these pegs can hold. Okay, so I'm going to try and pick that up with the backhoe and see what happens. That's 225 pounds. Just to give you an idea how tall that bear was, that tape, black tape right there, is 6 foot off the ground. I'll watch him stand up.